Hey everyone, welcome back to Self-Serving Skillet. We are gonna make a burger today, a smash burger inspired by my favorite sandwich, the Italian beef. Now, this is not an Italian beef. It's totally a burger inspired by the Italian beef, but we're gonna do our best to get the flavors in there. So the first thing and the longest thing that we're gonna need is our gravy, which is not really a gravy, it's an au jus, but that's what they call it, all right? So if we wanna do this quickly and get close, all right, real Italian beef gravy is gonna be simmering for hours and hours and hours. This is gonna get us close. I have here a quart or a liter of beef stock, right? And I'm gonna reduce this by about half with some herbs, some spices. But first, what we're gonna do here to kind of simulate the bone activity that we would get by making our own beef stock. So we're gonna add a little bit of gelatin, a packet of gelatin over the top while this is still cold, and this is called blooming the gelatin. We're just gonna get it hydrated for about a minute before we mix it in, cool it completely. It's already cool. Mix it in completely. And then what we're gonna do, I have a couple whole spices that I wanna add. And if you don't have all of these things, I mean, do your best. I'm gonna add whole black peppercorns. If you don't have whole black peppercorns, maybe at the end, when this is 5-10 minutes from being done, you can put in some ground pepper, and then this is all gonna get strained out. So these are the spices that I'm using, the spices and herbs that I'm using, and I really don't care about measurements here. Like I said, they're all gonna get strained out, and they're just gonna add to the flavor profile of this gravy, of this Italian beef gravy. The only thing that I'm really gonna measure out are my salt levels. And since this is gonna reduce by half, I'm not really gonna salt it until the very end. So my whole spices, I'm gonna add just a little bit of whole coriander and ground black pepper, as well as a couple of bay leaves. I think that all of those are gonna taste really good simmered together, as well as some oregano, basil, and parsley. Now, if you have fresh available to you, use fresh. That flavor is always gonna be a little bit superior. Dried does give you something different, and sometimes dried is the flavor you're going for, but do what you want there. And as far as my spices go, smoked paprika, I'm gonna put smoked paprika in everything. The smoke just gives it a little bit more umami, and the paprika really rounds it out. I put this in almost all of my stocks. And then, if you don't have what I'm going to show you next, granulated onion, granulated garlic. I prefer them to powdered garlic and onion because powdered garlic and onion tend to stick together. Granulated garlic and onion gives that nice dried soupy quality here. And I'm not gonna use those. I'm gonna use this bag of onions, because guess what falls off in the bag of onions is all of the onion skins. I have garlic in here too. The small sort of inner pieces of the garlic, this is a great project for them. Just take them, smash them, throw them in, skins and all. Like I said, these are all gonna get sifted out. Last but not least, and this is only last because I wanna maintain like a good salt level. This should be salty. This should be like potato chip salty. We're not gonna make a soup out of this, right? This is 100% dunking a sandwich, putting it on our face. Is celery salt. You could use celery seed over here when we add our black peppercorns and our bay leaf and all that. Don't have them. I have celery salt. This is gonna add a saltiness level, and I wanna manage it. So this is going in right before I pull it off. When that's all done, I'm gonna put this on the stove and cover it until it comes to a boil. Once it comes to a boil, uncover it, reduce to a simmer, and then you're just gonna have to wait. Good things come to those who wait. And the two most important ingredients in cooking anything, heat and time. We've got that jus working, and we're gonna get started on our hamburgers. Now, I made 6 buns. These are the same buns that I made a couple years ago on the show. I am going to put a card right up here to that video, plus a link in the description below so you can watch it after this video. I also have about 3/4 pound shredded mozzarella cheese. Please shred your own. Pre-shredded comes with a powder on the outside of it that prevents it from sticking together, and it's just not as good of a product. It doesn't taste as good because once you cut into cheese, it starts to lose its flavor. The crux of everything that I'm doing here is to celebrate this giardiniera that I made on Patreon. That's patreon.com/self-serving skillet. For as little as $1 a month, you get to view all of my new content ad-free. So for the month of February, I made this wonderful giardiniera, and I made a couple of different kinds. I made a lacto-fermented giardiniera, I made a traditional hot giardiniera, a traditional mild giardiniera, and we're going to make this burger with a little bit of this giardiniera. More on that later. We're gonna get started on our burgers, and it doesn't matter really how much meat I have here. I think I have a little more than a pound, maybe 20 ounces, because I want 6 burgers. So I'm just gonna form that into equally sized, roughly, patties. I could weigh them out if I wanted to. I'm just gonna eyeball it. Best way I can think to do this is to split it in half and then split those halves maybe into thirds and see kind of what I come up with there. And right away I can see that one side kind of has a little more than the other. I'll just make those into balls and see how I do. And I'm a little bit of a burger purist. I like the beef to speak for itself. I like the toppings to speak for itself. I'm not gonna load my patties up with onions or soup mix or Worcestershire sauce or spices. That stuff all has its place, and I have done it before, but this is really representing a very simple sandwich with very well done but few ingredients, so I definitely want my burger to mirror that. All right, those are roughly equal, and honestly, I don't need them to be perfectly round. The sort of textural diversity in a burger, especially in a smash burger, lends greatly to the texture and to the sear of the meat. My giardiniera is salty. My gravy is salty, but I still want to season my burger patties, and I'm gonna let the beef speak for itself, and I'm just gonna go with a little bit of salt because I wanna season every element. If you get something without giardiniera, without the jus, if you just get a little bit of beef on the plate, I still want you to be able to pick that up and go, ah, that was a good burger, right? All right, face down in a preheated pan, and we're gonna smash this burger. Now you can smash your burger with something like this. This is a cast iron burger press, burger smasher, and I really enjoy this. But until I got this, I was just using a glass container, a glass Tupperware container, something that's heat proof. Don't use plastic. But for now, you can use this guy. And I like to get a little oil down on the surface of this. Just rub it around with my fingers before I press it into my meat. There we go. Leaving it down there for a minute or so lets that oil heat up and lets the press sort of disengage from the burger patty. So Now we have this guy. As soon as we see brown start to creep up around the corner, I'm gonna flip. Might as well get this side with just a little bit of salt. No point in only one side being seasoned right, and pepper. There's pepper in the jus. I want pepper on the beef too. And this will unstick when it's ready. Usually I prefer a cast iron skillet when I'm doing burgers, especially smash burgers. But with this, with the jus that I have, I definitely want a little bit of fond left on my pan. I'm gonna deglaze it with that au jus, and we're gonna get even more beef flavor in there. So I just want a little bit of fond left on my pan, so that's why I'm doing it this way. There we go. Boom. And over. And then we work quickly here. So as to not overcook our burger, I want giardiniera over the top, and I want mozzarella cheese over that. There we go. Get some nice melty mozzarella cheese to hold that in place. And we need just a little bit of water. And then we can throw a lid on. And that steam will melt that cheese in there. 1 minute, maybe a minute and a half. All right, there we go. Nice and melty, delicious Italian beef burger. Now we come in with the gravy. There we go. And I'm gonna scrape all of that beautiful fond off of the bottom, adding to even more to our Italian beef flavor. More beefiness. Oh man, this started out as a quart of beef stock. All right, so this is just for me. So I'm not gonna be, well, later on it'll be for my family, but I'll also be reheating it. So I'm not gonna be too weird about tasting with the spoon. And it tastes amazing. Celery salt. Remember, if you add celery seed before this, when you're doing the regular seasoning, you're not gonna need to do this, but I'm adding the salt at the end just because I want I want to control my salt. Oh man, that is so good. And you'll notice here that there's a lot of seasoning still sticking to the spoon. So what I'm gonna do here is I'm gonna run it through a cheesecloth. I'm gonna get it really nice and liquid, not a lot of solids left in it. Then we're gonna serve. And there we go, the Italian beef burger, modeled after the Italian beef sandwich, official sandwich of Chicago. Now you could be very polite and take your jus and just kind of soak it into this bun over here, or we could do this sort of very polite French dip thing, you know, and go, ooh, that's a lovely sandwich. Or we could act like a real Chicagoan and just completely drench it in our jus. Of course, then we're gonna wanna wrap it in deli paper. And cut it in half. To get the real experience here. And my bread is so thick it didn't even really soak up a whole lot of jus, but that's okay because we can totally fix that. It's not a beef if you don't get messy eating it. That scratches the itch for this Wisconsin boy that grew up on just the other side of the border. Woo! Later on this month, I'm going to make an Italian beef sandwich completely from scratch. The other couple episodes this month, I'm going to use this giardiniera among the others that I made on patreon.com/self-serving skillet at the duck egg level, which is $10 a month. You get an extra episode for free, as well as all of my content ad-free and a day early at that level. If you want to check out those buns, which are absolutely phenomenal, I'm going to link that right over here, as well as some other burgers I did over here, and I will see you next week.